like to call to order the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission for today, Thursday, June 17th. If we could have our opening comments, please.
Before we begin the agenda, the Wichita-Sedgwick County Metropolitan Area Planning Commission and the Wichita-Sedgwick County Board of Zoning Appeals would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this public hearing. For those in attendance, copies of the agenda for today's meeting, the public hearing procedure, and Planning Department staff reports on all agenda items are available in the lobby. The Planning Commission's and the BZA's bylaws limit the applicant on a zoning, subdivision, or variance application and his or her representatives to a total of 10 minutes of speaking time at the start of the hearing on that item, plus up to 2 minutes at the conclusion of that hearing. All other persons wishing to speak on agenda items are limited to 3 minutes per person. However, if they feel that it is needed and justified, the chairman may extend these times by up to 2 minutes. All speakers are requested to state his or her name and address for the record when beginning to speak. When you are finished speaking, please share your name, address, and the case number on the sheet provided in the room. This will enable staff to notify you if there are any additional proceedings concerning that item. All speakers at the podium, please remove your face mask before speaking into the microphone. Please note that all written and visual materials you present to the Commission and the Board will be retained by the Secretary as part of the official record. If you are not speaking, but you wish to be notified about future proceedings on a particular case, please provide your contact information to the Planning Department. The Planning Commission and the Board are interested in hearing the views of all persons who wish to express themselves on all the agenda items. However, we ask that all speakers please be as courteous and concise as possible and avoid long repetitions of facts or opinions which have already been stated. For your information, the Wichita City Council has adopted a policy for all city zoning items. A copy of this policy is available from the planning staff. The City Council relies on a written record of the Planning Commission hearings and does not conduct its own additional public hearings on these items. The decision of the BZA is final. Any appeal of a decision of the BZA is to the District Court.
Thank you for the opening comments. At this time, I would like to proceed to the agenda, and we're looking for the approval of the meeting minutes for June 13th. I show Josh Blick to be absent, and we also need to add Ann Fox's name onto those members that were present.
But I was gone for a good portion of the center of the meeting, so I want to abstain from the vote on minutes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Hartman, second by Mr. Dool to move for approval. Are there any comments on the motion? Questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And abstaining.
Aye.
Aye.
So we have 11:02 or 10:02?
9:02.
9:02, okay. So we have 11 total. Moving on, we have the consideration of subdivision committee recommendations. First, we have sub 21-00014. It's the final plat of Cornejo Industrial District Edition. Are there any members of the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Okay, we'll take this on consent. Next, we have sub 2115. It's a final plat of Cornejo Industrial District Second Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Cornejo Industrial Cornejo Industrial District Second. Seeing none, we will take that one on consent. Sub 2118, final plat of Wesson Second Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Wesson Second Edition. Hearing none, we'll take this one on consent. Finally, sub 2126, final plat of Hopper Windwalker Edition. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Hopper Windwalker Edition. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent.
I move to approve agenda items 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4.
I'll second that.
Been moved by Ms. Miles, second by Mr. Hartman to approve the subdivision committee recommendations for the plats. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on, we have vacation 2124. It's a vacation of a portion of a platted rear setback located at 2408 North Morning View Street. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Located at 2408 North Morning View Street. Hearing none, we'll take this on consent.
Move for approval of item 3.1.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Hartman, second by Mr. Bill Johnson to approve item 3.1. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We will hear the next case, which is Zone 2053, that was returned back from MAPC. So we will hear this case. Next, we have item, it's a conditional use, 2021-00017. It's a conditional use on rural residential zoned property for dog boarding, training, and breeding business located at 10,080 South Webb Road. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to abstain.
Okay,
Yes, I'd like to hear it.
Okay, we will hear this case. Next, we have conditional use 21-00025. It's conditional use for rural residential for a scattered garden cemetery located at 127th Street South and 79th Street, 127th Street East and 79th Street South. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case located at 127th Street East and 79th Street South? It's a conditional use for rural residential, in a rural residential zone property for a scattered gardens cemetery.
This is Jane Mott. My address is 12300 East, 79th Street South.
Would you like
I would like
this-
to hear the case,
Would you like to
please.
hear this, ma'am, would you like to hear this case?
Yes, please.
Okay, we will hear this case. Not at this moment, we'll come back to it.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Before we come back to it, is the agent or applicant for this case, the Scatter Garden case, are they in the audience, either in City Hall or virtually?
They're back there.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Con 2126. It's a conditional use to permit an accessory apartment on property zoned rural residential located at 5700 South, 116th Street East. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Accessory apartment, 5700 South, 116th Street East. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent. Next, we have PUD 21-00010. It's a zone change from single family to a planned unit development located at 4640 East 15th Street North. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case?
Yes, I would.
Okay, we will hear this case. Next, we have zone 21-00032, zone change from single-family residential to general office, located at 3310 West MacArthur. Is there anyone on the commission that would like to hear this case? Hearing none, is there anyone in the chambers that would like to hear this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to hear this case? Zone 21-00032, zone change from single family to general office at 3310 West MacArthur. Hearing none, we'll take that on consent.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve items 4.4 and 4.6.
I'll second.
Been moved by Mr. Bill Johnson, second by Mr. Hartman, to approve items 4.4 and 4.6. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. First case is agenda item 4.1, located at Hydraulic and 63rd Street.
Yes, good afternoon. Philip Zevenbergen with planning staff. Zone 2020-53 is coming back before you after being considered by the Board of County Commissioners. After the discussion, they determined that there needed to be new consideration regarding the case with some information that I'll go over very briefly with you. The details being in the staff report, primarily focusing on possible modifications to the protective overlay for this case. As you're aware, it's on the southwest corner, East 63rd and South Hydraulic. It was heard by the Board of County Commissioners on May 19th, and that was when they discussed and realized they were lacking some information they would like to consider before they rendered a final decision on it, which is why it's before you this morning. The applicant is requesting a zone change from rural residential to GC general commercial for a vehicle storage yard for boat and RV storage. Information that the Board of County Commissioners was looking at having additional information for was related to possible crime, drainage, access to the property, history of the general commercial properties on the north side of 63rd Street, in addition to possible modifications to the protective overlay. I will go over each one of these just very briefly. If you have any particular questions regarding it after reviewing the staff report, you feel free to ask those while I'm presenting. Related to crime, I reached out to the Sheriff's Office for Sedgwick County, and they very just generally said anytime you're storing property that has value, that can attract crime. There was no necessarily specific statistics regarding how much does this increase a crime rate, could this affect crime in the surrounding residential areas. Truly a full-blown crime study would have to be done, and that would take a considerable amount of time to do, and there would be a lot of variables that could potentially call into question whether or not it could apply to this property. Drainage. This is really more of a platting question. The property is platted. It was platted as a residential property. The drainage plan that was submitted at the time was for a residential development. Long story short is the applicant will most likely have to provide a new drainage plan prior to the issuance of building permits. They would likely be required to have retention or detention of water on site before it drains into the ditch along Hydraulic. There was concerns at the Board of County Commissioners meeting about stormwater draining into Pine Bay Lake, which is on the east side of Hydraulic. Sedgwick County Public Works did say it drains to Hydraulic, but it gets stored in the ditch. There are no facilities underneath Hydraulic that takes any water across Hydraulic into the lake. The soil is very sandy and percolates very quickly. Any type of pollutants or anything like that, when it percolates through sand, it actually acts as a natural filter. So detention on the site could actually just have it percolate on site. Any water stored in the ditch just percolates into the ground. Access, again, a platting question. The property is platted. We reviewed this a little bit at the last meeting. There are two openings afforded to the property along South Hydraulic, and there is one opening allowed on East 63rd Street. The applicant has right to use those locations because the county traffic engineer did look at those when it was platted and determined a safe location from the intersection where openings can be located. If they wanted to relocate an opening that is not prescribed by the plat, they would have to go through a separate public hearing process to vacate the access control to relocate an opening, and we would be reviewed by County Public Works again at that time. History of the general commercial zoning on the north side of 63rd Street. Those properties were rezoned in 1993. This was prior to the zoning code that we have now that unified the zoning between the city of Wichita and the Sedgwick County. The property was in the county at the time when it was rezoned. It was rezoned to C, commercial zoning, for a pet supply store, and the reason they needed what we now consider general commercial zoning is they were doing some manufacturing of cages on property, and they also wanted to afford the opportunity for semis to be on the property that supplied the store to really in terms of the space of how much land was rezoned, to provide semis the opportunity to come on property to do their delivery, turn around on property and exit instead of backing up traffic onto hydraulic. The property to the west, which is the Spray Lake addition, was, give me a second here, it was zoned rural residential. It had the conditional use for the extractive uses that created Spray Lake. The actual housing development as we know it today came after the general commercial zoning and the use of the pet supply store existing at that time. So all of that already existed before any of those homes were built. So the main topic of conversation for today is possible modifications to the protective overlay. There's been an amendment to even what is in the staff report. It's in front of you. There's absolutely zero new information on there. What it is a reorganization of the protective overlay that better classifies some of the conditions based on the uses that are requested. And I'll go over those in just a minute. Overall, the possible modifications that were requested or discussed at the Board of County Commissioners related to item number 1, which related to what would the base zoning be. You would have general commercial as a zone, but what could you restrict it back to? Staff recommendation was for limited commercial zoning. There was a discussion at the Board of County Commissioners of potentially doing a restriction back to rural residential. It is really up to you guys today to determine how you want to handle that. In order to assist you with that, there is a table in the staff report that provides you guys with alternatives to several items on the protective overlay to help give you guys guidance versus giving you a blank sheet to try to, as we coined the phrase, make sausage from the bench. Those alternatives are not the only alternatives. Those alternatives are really just meant to guide you in providing you with options and language that you could use to help craft a protective overlay that you want to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners this afternoon. So regarding item number 1, we have staff recommendation which did not change. It is to allow it to restrict it back to limited commercial zoning except for the use of vehicle storage yard, which is permitted in general commercial. Alternative number 1 would be to limit it to limited commercial zoning and restrict additional uses away from limited commercial. That came from a discussion at the Board of County Commissioners where there was those who felt that there were certain uses within limited commercial that would also be inappropriate in the area. Alternative number 2 would be to allow the vehicle storage yard but restrict everything back to rural residential, which is what the site is currently zoned. So basically say the only commercial use that is allowed on this property by right is vehicle storage yard. If you don't do vehicle storage yard, it has to be developed like it's rural residential as it sits today. What changes, and if you want to refer to your handout, it is two-sided because there are 2 options. I added a different number 2, which basically says anything below here is related to just the vehicle storage yard. Just because many of the conditions that followed in the protective overlay are really just related to commercial uses or the vehicle storage yard. So that's where the reorientation comes from, is none of that information changed from what was in the staff report. It just more applied it more appropriately, where what we didn't want to do is say somebody builds a house on rural, because it's rural residential, to then have to meet all of these buffer standards and meet all of these lighting standards that don't apply to it because it's residential, when really those restrictions that we want to put onto it are because of the vehicle storage or a possible commercial use. And so if it were to be zone limited commercial, they would apply to commercial uses, not to residential uses. If it were to be restricted to a rural residential zoning, these conditions would only apply to the vehicle storage yard. Does that make sense? Again, we didn't want to overburden a residential use by the way we worded a protective overlay. It was caught kind of late in the game. Wanted to provide it to you this afternoon for your consideration. So that's all of what the new bullet point number 2 revolves around. The only things I'm going to cover are the items in red, because those are the only things that are new to the protective overlay that staff added that were not already there before. The first one being, if we want to look at the sheet in front of you, just so we're all on the same page and we don't get confused, item C, and it's about the landscape buffer. Quick clarification about the landscape buffer. The landscape buffer is not the required screening. The applicant is required to have screening, and he is proposing on his landscape plan and site plan to have the wall along the frontages, because he's required to screen it from the rights of way. The landscape buffer is the aesthetic device to help visually improve the sight of the vehicle storage yard and add some landscaping and add some visual aesthetic to it versus just having your screening walls in your buildings. The language for the landscape buffers was generally discussed and pretty much in common, like everyone was in common understanding that this was what the applicant was intending to do. It just was not written into the staff report because it wasn't a required element per the zoning code. Through the discussion at the Board of County Commissioners, it became very apparent that no, we need to give the protective overlay teeth related to the landscaping so it actually gets done. And so in general, it's allowing a 4 to 6 foot buffer that allows the applicant to do the natural contours that he wishes to do versus stating it has to be 6 feet or it has to be 5 feet, because then you just have a landscape wall. This allows him to actually play with the land a little bit, provide a little bit more elevation change, some better aesthetic quality to it versus just your standard buffer that has trees on top of it. The landscaping will consist of 2 trees per 40 linear feet along both frontages. Trees can be shade or ornamental. There shall be shrubs and or ornamental grasses planted in between the tree spacings. The landscaping shall be irrigated and maintained. That's the backstop to say you can't just plant it and let it die. Basically, if a tree dies, then a new one has to be put in its place, so on and so forth. And then we took some guidance from the Wichita Landscape Ordinance, which does not apply to this property, but through our discussion at the last Planning Commission meetings, it's always kind of a good place to start regarding minimum planting sizes. So you don't just have your little tiny sprig sapling tree. There's actually, a decent caliber tree there. For shade trees, there's 2-inch caliber, 1-inch caliber for ornamental, 5-foot conifer tree, or a 2-gallon planting for a shrub or grass. So basically some guidance to say you have to have some minimum sizes of your plantings for this landscape buffer. Item number, on this sheet, item number 4 on option 1 is related to lighting. The language of the lighting is pulled straight out of the zoning code. It's not any more restrictive. We just put it in a protective overlay because it's one of those things where for some, if they don't see it, they don't think it applies. It's more or less redundant putting it into a protective overlay, but again, it's just more of it's there, so it's common knowledge that yes, there are lighting standards that have to be adhered to. And then finally, it would be item number 5 on your handout regarding signage. Truth be told, this was a bit of an oversight that we did not look to restrict signage when we're looking at a zoning for general commercial. Overall, there are some options. I should have mentioned there are some options for you to choose from your landscape buffer. I'm not going to go through all of these. You can read them and kind of piece together what you want at the time that you want to render a recommendation. Same thing for signage. It gets kind of technical into the weeds. Again, that's why we provided some options for you. Not going to go through what all those different options are. Basically, some are give more leeway to the applicant, and the other one is usually more restrictive, kind of give you one way or the other to go from. But what staff recommendation is that on this property, which would have a general commercial zoning, though it would be restricted in its uses, to not allow any off-site or billboard signs. It would allow one 25-foot pole sign with up to 150 square feet in sign area. There would be one building sign per street frontage of up to 20% of the facade that the sign is attached to, or it cannot exceed 200 square feet. So if it's a very large facade and 20% would just be gigantic, they do have a size requirement they would have to adhere to. And there would be no electronic message board signs. All of these standards did get pulled from the Sedgwick County sign code, and basically they have a foundation there. They're not arbitrarily shown. If you look at the options, you can kind of see where they may not have come from. Being a little more restrictive than limited commercial would allow, but a little bit more permissive than what neighborhood retail would allow. It's basically somewhere kind of in the middle. Work with the applicant, giving something that is amenable to them and could be beneficial for the business, but not full license of what the sign code would allow for commercial use on the site. So just to clarify what the different options are, again, the very first page of option one, there's several of them, items 3 through 7 would apply to commercial properties because they're inherent enough to just commercial uses and not just the vehicle storage yard. The subpoints of A, B, and C would just be applied to the vehicle storage yard. On the back side is the option that if you were to go with the restriction back to rural residential, basically all of the things at the end of the protective overlay would only apply to the vehicle storage yard because it would be the only commercial use permitted in rural residential. That is all the new information for you. If you have any questions regarding, what have we talked about before, anything, any past discussions we've had, or any information in the staff report, I'd be happy to clarify those at that time. I am going to turn the floor over real quick to Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor. With this coming back to the Planning Commission, there is no requirement that a public hearing be held again. It has already satisfied that requirement, it is an option, but I'm going to have him clarify the legalities of what you guys can choose to do and where that kind of comes from related to the public hearing.
Philip, before you turn over the podium, Scott Wadle, Planning Department, I just want to clarify that you had mentioned a wall for screening, and the applicant is proposing to do a fence for the solid screening, right?
Fence, yes, a fence, not a wall, sorry.
When you say a fence, you mean like a wood fence?
Yes, it'd be a solid screen
A
wood
solid wood
fence
screen.
versus a wall.
Wall,
They are
okay.
different things, that would be masonry.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Good afternoon. Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor. As Philip indicated, the only required hearing statutorily, the only required public hearing in which the public is given the opportunity to provide input by statute is the initial public hearing that happened back in, I think, February on this case, if I recall correctly. The bylaws for the MAPC do not establish there's a requirement for a public hearing where people can provide input during this hearing. I think it's really at the discretion of the Planning Commission. I think a couple of your options would be to hold the public hearing in the same fashion that you do under the bylaws in the initial hearing. I believe on the second time you actually heard this, you guys gave a short, somewhat truncated time frame for the applicant and the property owners nearby. You could do that. Another option would be to limit the discussion and this could go into either one of those, but to limit discussion to the items that Philip mentioned that the Board of County Commissioners referred this item back to the Planning Commission on, or you could just take this action on this item without the public hearing from the applicant or any of the property owners. Certainly the Planning Commission could ask questions of them if they saw fit, but you do have a record. You've got the minutes from the Board of County Commissioners meeting. You guys have heard this twice before, so there's certainly not a requirement for hearing. I'd be happy to answer any questions on those items if you have them.
Do you have any questions? Mr. Wagner? Yes.
Not from that standpoint, but going from here, do the rules change when a vote has been passed by us and is brought back by the county commissioners? What is the process for approval or denial?
Sure. Are you talking about the process at the county commission level, or? Sure.
Basically, what we do today, we make a recommendation. What happens from there?
Sure, and I'll answer, I think, what you asked, maybe a little bit more. The way that the statute's worded is when it comes back to the Planning Commission, after you consider it again, you can either resubmit your original recommendation and give the reasons therefore, or submit new and amended recommendations. And I would suggest if you do that you also provide the reasons and the golden factors you might do that for. Then it would go back to the Board of County Commissioners. At that point in time, the Board of County Commissioners would have the option to, approve whatever the recommendation was. But let me move back. They could either approve the application, they could deny it, or they could approve an amended version of it. Any of those actions, let me back up. The approval would have to override the protest petition in the area, which does exceed 20%. So it would require 4 votes. The County Commission 4 out of 5 to override the protest petition. Any denial would require 3 votes, a simple majority vote at the County Commission level. Does that answer your question?
Yep.
All right. Happy to stand if there's any other questions. Otherwise, I'll let
Any
you
other
guys go.
questions? Hearing none, thank you. At this point, do we want to act on what Mr. Wagner has presented to us with regards to public comment?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to recommend, because we've heard it, this is the 3rd time now that we do a public comment and just act upon the recommendation that came back from the commission.
In the mic.
Do we?
Is that a motion?
Yes, that's a motion.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Are there any discussions on the motion?
Can you repeat? And I couldn't hear him. He wasn't speaking on the mic.
Would you like to have the motion repeated? Josh?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Chairman. Thank
You're muted.
Yes, Chairman.
You'd like to hear the motion again? Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't hear him. He wasn't in the
Okay.
microphone.
The motion was to suspend public hearing and just this commission, just act upon the changes that come out of the county commission. Or Board of
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 10-1 with Commissioner Miles in the negative. Okay, thank you. Okay, so do we have any questions for Philip?
I have one
Yes.
request. On item 2C, the last sentence, can we add the word minimum for the plant standards? The following minimum standards shall apply, just in case they want to do, you know, something bigger than 2 gallons? Thank you.
I've got a question.
Yes, Mr. Hartman.
Okay, on the landscape buffer, it's requiring 2 trees per 40 lineal feet. And then shrubs or ornamental grasses shall be planted in between tree spacing. Is there a quantity, or how do we know how many shrubs they're gonna have to put between the tree spacing?
That was not specified as a quantity, just because there's no landscape ordinance in Sedgwick County. It only applies to the city. And so we use the tree spacing from the landscape ordinance of the city as a guide. And the understanding was that you'd have trees, but also you are required to have shrubs within the trees, but we did not specify a number, not knowing what the spacing between the trees would be.
Is it supposed to be a continuous screen?
I think that idea is knowing he wants to do natural contours, letting there be some artistic license in how the landscape buffer is designed. Knowing he has to plant a minimum number of trees, which really when they are grown and have their foliage are the ones that, with the height of the berm and the height of the trees, actually have that visual aesthetic buffer. The grasses and the shrubs in the middle are meant to just add to that, whether you have a quantity or not.
So they could have one plant?
I mean, it has to be planted, and one of the original discussions, I think even at the very first planning commission we had, was an idea of letting some like more native type grasses and things just to cut down on the maintenance. And so it definitely has to be landscape, it's not gonna be dirt. But to specify a number of shrubs, we left that up to the discretion of the applicant. You can add a number if you feel it is necessary to add a quantity. We just felt with not knowing the size of the trees they're planting, you have spacing of trees, but how do you determine what's an appropriate number of bushes for that length of right-of-way?
So is that gonna be the approval of the planning department, the planting plan?
Yes, there is a landscape plan that they have to submit, and we will review the number of shrubs or grasses that are planted in between the trees before that has to be part of the landscape plan. You know, if they submit one and they only have one shrub for the entire length of the right-of-way, you know, I'm kind of speaking tongue-in-cheek here, but we will be reviewing the plan to ensure that there's an adequate number. We just didn't feel we needed to put a specific number on those items.
Okay.
And just point of clarification, before they can get a CO or certificate of occupancy, whatever landscaping plan they submit is gonna have to be not only approved, but then it's gonna have to be verified. So, and like Philip said, it sounds like we wanna add a number of shrubs between the trees, we can certainly do that, if that's what we want to do. Are there any other questions for Philip at this time, for staff? I guess for me, after reading the commissioners' minutes from the commission meeting, Commissioner Dennis had I thought had a very valid comment point that he made. If we were to, his issue was, if this is not a vehicle storage facility, would it then be able to go back to its original zoning, which would be rural residential? And I kind of like the option that we have on the back of the handout for option 2, where the rural residential zoning would be maintained. Vehicle storage would be approved with these restrictions, and then if it's not a vehicle storage, then it would go back to rural residential. And then anything that happens at that intersection would then have to come back to the commission for approval. That's my feeling on this, and I would be supportive of option 2, but I'm certainly not wanting to sway the commission on which direction we might want to go on this. Do we have any other comments?
I'm in favor of option 2 as well.
I'm sorry?
I'm in favor of option 2 as well.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Warren?
Mr. Chairman, what I would, if somebody's ready to make a motion, for me, having something to talk about, there's so much in terms of options out there, is kind of where do you bite into it? If somebody's got an idea of what they think the right way to go, we'll put that into a motion, then we could discuss the pros and cons of that motion.
Okay.
That would simplify it for me.
Well, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we approve option 2, and that we have a minimum, this would be the minimum standard for item C on the landscaping, but that we, on item C4, insert a number there of 2-gallon shrubs between the trees. And I don't know what would make sense for that. Mr. Hartman may have a better feel.
That would be kind of tough, depending on the shrubs. Some shrubs get 5 feet wide, some get 2 feet wide, so it's pretty much gonna have to be depending on whoever reviews the plan, I think.
Yes, Mr. Johnson?
This will have to be a landscape plan when they go for a permit that will be prepared by a licensed landscape architect. I won't rely on them.
Right.
I don't want to try to design that up here.
Okay, all right. Then it would be, this would be the minimum requirement for planting, for a landscaping plan. And that would be my motion if I have a second for that.
I'll second it.
Then Mr. McKay. Okay, Mr. Warren,
So,
you got a motion?
well, okay, the aspect of the shrubs, I'm with Mr. Johnson on this. Sometimes, quite often, when you put in the minimum, that becomes the maximum. I would, having a landscape architect look at it, would make something that looks right. Whereas if we say 10, 15, 20, whatever number we put in, that becomes the maximum. That's what they're going to put in, that minimum number. Mm-hmm. If we leave it open, then they're going to, hopefully they would do something that makes sense to the overall plan.
Yes, Mr. McKay.
I know this minimum. Ms. Foster, didn't you say that on that one item, be the minimum of 2 gallon on the shrubs?
No, just that the whole bullet list, item I through IV, are minimum standards as opposed to maximum standards. So if someone wanted to put a 4-inch caliper shade tree in, they could. This the way it's stated now,
That's
this
I
is what you
trying to get-
have to do.
Thank you, I just trying to get it clarified what.
Yeah.
Once we're.
Any other discussion on the motion? Yes, Mr. Warren?
Make sure I'm clear on the motion. The motion would be to approve with alternate number 2 on, which would use, limited to those permitted by right in rural residential vehicle storage yard as permitted in GC general commercial. That's the option. And then the other options on page 5 of our report.
I'm referencing.
Does everything follow that
Yeah,
far
I'm
left, that
referencing
far
that.
right-hand column all the way
I
across?
think that's everything that's
Okay.
on this sheet.
Okay.
The far right-hand column over here is not this, I'm sorry. The far right-hand column over here is not reflected in, like, this option 2, I'm sorry for the confusion, is staff's recommendation except for the rural residential. The only thing that changed from staff recommendation on this option is to restrict it to rural residential.
Okay.
Otherwise, if you're looking at the table, all of the other points follow staff recommendation.
And this is a staff recommendation.
An option for staff recommendation.
Yeah.
Both of these were based off of staff recommendation with the only adjustment on what the use restriction would be.
Want to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yep.
Okay. Yes.
One clarification question, and that is, if you have any findings that are different, or if you have any additional findings that you would like to include, based on the golden factors on
I
belief.
think the findings that we have on page 7.
Yep.
The staff report should suffice.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Yes.
vote, I'd like to have the county attorney come back, just for public information. We approve it because of the petition, what the process is at the county. This is for the public that's been involved.
Certainly, Justin Wagner, Assistant County Counselor again, and Commissioner McKay, you're just wondering what the process will be when this goes to the Board of County
Well,
Commissioners?
for the public knowledge.
Sure. I mean, the Board of County Commissioners will put this on another agenda. I would look to Scott Wadle if he has an approximate time frame for when this might be in front of the Board of County Commissioners. But it'll go on their agenda. It'll be under new business, and folks would have the opportunity to. And traditionally, the Board of County Commissioners will take public comments on everything. Again, they don't have to by statute either, but that's the traditional approach that they have utilized on zoning cases. And again, it would the protest petition period has already run on this, but there were sufficient protests to exceed the 20% requirement. So again, it would be there would still be a protest petition that requires a supermajority to override and approve any zoning action here. Are there any other questions you had on that, Commissioner?
No, I just wanted, so that the public knew.
Sure.
The process.
And Scott, did you know approximately when this was going to be in front of the Commissioners?
I'm in the process of looking that up, so.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Do we need to wait for you to figure that out and proceed?
No, it will be, I can tell you it'll be a number of weeks from now, but we do have a date, and I can raise my hand when I find that out.
Okay.
They'll be notified anyhow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the
we'll
people
send
will
out
be
a
notified
follow-up
anyway.
letter from this meeting to everybody who has spoken for public comment in the past is on our notification list. They will receive the follow-up letter with the dates of the Board of County Commissioners meeting. It also explains there is not a 2-week protest period on this. I can for sure add language with some of what County Councilor Wagner has said.
Yes, Mr. Wadle?
Yeah, the date that we have tentatively got for this to return to the BOCC is July 21st.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Motion carries 10-1 with Commissioner Miles in the negative.
And Commissioner Blick also.
Oh, Commissioner Blick.
Oh, did you say nay also? Commissioner
Yes, I
Black?
sure did, Chairman, thank you.
I'm sorry?
Yeah,
You did, okay, so.
Yes, I said nay.
So it was 9-2, look at mine. Okay, moving on to our next case. Let's go on, Nicola.
Mr. Green.
How are you this afternoon?
Fine. Bill Lonecker, Senior Planner, Current Plans. Your next case, conditional use 2021-17. This is a county conditional use request for a boarding, training, breeding, and dog care kennel on rural residential zone, unplatted 20-acre property, as you can see on your location map. The subject property is located mid-mile between East 95th Street South, which is on the north end, and East 103rd Street South on the south side. And it's located on the east side of Webb Road. Let's go to the aerial. There is the subject site. And you can see the applicant's home and accessory structure, which is a shed that's under the front of the property. You can also see a line of trees that bisects the front from the rear of the property. The proposed dog kennel is going to go behind that row of trees over on the east side of this property. The applicant specifically has asked for a boarding, training, breeding, and dog daycare kennel for 40 dogs. The 40 outdoor kennels, there will be 40 outdoor kennels attached to each of the 40 indoor kennels. Could we go to the site plan, please? Okay, there's your site plan. The kennel is proposed for not only over long-term boarding, but also for same-day drop-off, same-day pickup for individual dogs, which we'll call dog daycare. You're also looking at obedience training for individual dogs or group training, and the applicant is proposing that this facility be open 7 a.m., 7 p.m. My understanding is that the training portion of this is not part of that 40 total dogs that would be in the kennel itself. So looking at the site plan, we've used it to determine its compliance with maximum lot area, setbacks, and screening. We've noted that on the minimum lot area, it exceeds the 5 acres. He's got 20 acres. We've also noted that on the setbacks, he exceeds the 200 feet all the way around. In regards to the outdoor play and training area, on screening, we noted that could you please go, well, okay, this does show it on the site plan. You've got mature tree line on the north side, and you've got a mature tree line that's broken up at the north end over on the east side. And then the applicant, there is not a mature tree line on the south side of the site. The applicant proposes to put evergreens around the outdoor play, training and play area, which was proposed to be on the south side and then over on the east side of the indoor kennel. So he's going to have 6 foot tall evergreens at the time of planting, centered at 6 foot intervals around that area on the south side, and where there is no tree line that would meet the screening standard. Also, the kennel itself, the building, will provide screening in regards to along the north as well as the west side of the property. So he meets the screening requirements also. Now, typically what you hear about dog kennels is the noise. That's a primary concern. Staff feels that with the size of the site, with the proposed screening, that this will help minimize that concern. The primary question here we've got is the traffic generated by the kennel on a rural road, and we'll get into that. Let's go to our, could we go to the photos we took of the area, please? Okay, this, in your report, it says that this section of Webb Road, this mile section of Webb between 103rd Street South and 95th, at the time when we first went out there, there was little or no drainage ditches allowed. Since this staff report was written, we went out and took pictures late last week, and north of the subject property, on the east side of Webb Road, the township has began to put in drainage ditch on that side. Could we have the next photo, please? That's right across the street where the drainage ditch is being put in. And that's that's north of the site. Could we have the next photo? Okay, north of the site, we've got rural residential zone property that is got a single family home on it, a farmstead, and they've got 77 plus acres. That is field. Could we have the next photo, please? That is northwest of the site, across Webb Road. We've got an example of the large tract residential properties that are along this mile section of Webb Road. There's either 9 or 10 large tract residents here that are broken up by some agricultural fields. Next photo, please. We're at the, we went all the way down. Okay, this is the intersection of 103rd Street South and Webb Road. The drainage that we've got on this section of Webb goes towards this intersection. You're looking at Webb Road, you're looking north towards it there. That is sand and gravel, it's Township Road. You're looking at 103rd Street. As it heads to the west, it is paved, and as it heads to the east, it is a sand and gravel Township Road. So we've got county paved road mixed with sand and gravel Township Road at 103rd Street South where the drainage is going. Next photo, please. That is the applicant's site. Very typical, a bit larger than most of the tracts out there, most of them between 9 and 11 acres. Next photo, please. There's a property abutting the applicant's property to the south. Next photo, please. That is across Webb Road, and you can see some agricultural field, but you're also seeing, it looks like there's some more residential or tracts residential development that's getting ready to happen along this section of Webb. So you got a mix of agricultural field in this with, if you look on the right, you've got some dirt that's being moved from a piece of property that looks like it's being ready to be developed for single family residential. Next photo, please. Okay, this is south of the applicant's property on Webb Road, and you're looking at the southwest side of South Webb. This particular portion of Webb Road, it gets narrower as you go down towards 103rd. It starts out with 80 foot of right-of-way, which is where we were, where we saw the ditches being put in, and it goes down to 60 foot of right-of-way. So, could we have the next photo, please? That's right across the road. So you've got, really don't have any bar ditches down here. That's one of the big problems with this particular road. Again, we've got 9 or 10 single-family residents on this section of Webb. That 9 to 11 acres. The applicant's got 20 acres. Let's go back to the aerial, please. Okay, the subject site is located in unincorporated rural residential Sedgwick County. It's out outside the city of Mulvane and city of Derby growth areas, although Mulvane is located approximately a half-mile southwest from it. The Mulvane School District uses the subject portion of South Webb Road as a route for their buses. And looking at traffic through the area, we'll get to that, but we have spoke and had correspondence with Rockford Township, which maintains this portion of Webb Road, which is classified as a minor arterial. And the township has expressed concerns about the proposed dog kennel in regards to their ability to maintain Webb in its current condition. They have stated that during rains and snows that they have to get out and work on this road just to maintain the condition it's at. Looking at traffic here, traffic generated by the proposed kennel is a concern of both the township, Rockford Township, and Sedgwick County Public Works. Sedgwick County Public Works traffic counts for this section of South Webb over a 3-day period was 130 to 150 average trips per day. Information that is not in your staff report that I'm going to relay to you verbally today is that the county estimates 8 to 12 average trips per day are generated by single-family residents with at least one child driving. So taking that and just taking the 8 to 10 and making it 10 average trips per day, you're looking at these 9 to 10 residences generating 90 to 100 trips out of the 130 to 150 trips on this road. So the traffic's primarily local. It's the folks getting in and out of their homes. Other folks using it is the Mulvane School District, EMS, Post Office, Sheriff's Department, and whatever other through traffic you got going on here. So drainage seems to be the most pressing improvement that needs to be resolved. And right now, Rockford Township does not have this portion of Webb Road as their highest priority in regards to maintenance and repair. They've got 41 to 43 miles of road in the Rockford Township that they have to maintain. And they've got more pressing needs than some of their other roads out in the township. So you've got priorities here trying to be met by the township in regards to provide the services by maintaining these roads. And they simply do not have the revenue at this time to make the necessary improvements to bump this up. We're looking at the county and both Webb Road have both stated that although this road is not the highest priority at the township, they are watching. It's on their watch list in regards to see what changes would happen to maybe bump this up in regards to maintenance and repair. Looking at conformance to plans and policies, the 2015-2035 Community Investment Plan identifies this as rural growth. This is area that's land outside Wichita and small cities growth areas. For I noted, it's outside Derby and Mulvane's growth areas. It's intended for agricultural uses, rural-based uses that are no more offensive than those agricultural uses commonly found in Sedgwick County. It's not unusual for this body to consider dog kennels in unincorporated Sedgwick County. We're looking at this conditional use is in conformance with the Mulvane Derby 2010-2030 joint plan adopted in 2010. And this plan says that this area will remain agricultural and rural in character. And again, kennels are not an unusual development for unincorporated parts of rural residential Sedgwick County. Site is within the Mulvane subdivision jurisdiction, but because the site is approximately 20 acres, they will not require to plat to build the kennel. Staff has recommended a lesser development than what the application requested on this. we're looking at recommending that at this time, the kennel be for only 20 dogs, and that would be for boarding only. And it would not include dog daycare. This would be dogs that would come out, stay at least overnight. In other words, you're going on vacation, you need a place to drop your dog off. So we're recommending only 20 dogs for boarding only at this time. And the proposed developing happening in the future based on milestones determined by Sedgwick County engineer. The county engineer's opinion is that drainage is the primary problem for this portion of road, and that the county engineer at times, at such time that the township has made improvements to this section of the road, the county engineer would come out, look at it, and they would determine at that time whether or not it was time for the expansion. At such time that they determined that it was, the expansion could happen, they would get, Rockford Township would get notification, the applicant would get notification from the county engineer that the road is ready for what the applicant provided. There's no time frame on this because, again, the township's got a priority, a list of priorities and roads to repair and maintain. Those have to be done. There's the uncertainty of revenue. So to put a time frame on this would be arbitrary. We're simply looking for the county engineer to say, okay, the improvements have been made. The applicant can therefore look to make what he originally proposed. And then at that time, in our first recommendation of approval, in the event the necessary improvements to the roadway have been approved by the county engineer, any expansion beyond the overnight boarding kennel for a total of 20 dogs will require submission and approval and administrative adjustment. That's simply to see if there's been any problems, nuisance or otherwise, or traffic on the road. So we've tried to recognize what the township's concerns are and tried to at least get the applicant going on what he's proposing. We've heard from no one on this application. All the dialogue's been between staff, county engineer, township, and the staff. So we are recommending approval for a total of 20 dogs now just for overnight boarding. And at such time that the county engineer deems that the necessary improvements have been made to Webb Road, then they can notify the applicant and the township and the staff that they can move forward. And at that time, the applicant would go ahead and make a application for administrative approval on that adjustment. We're not looking to have another public hearing on this. That's why we're looking at this improvements being the milestone to let it happen. We've listed, besides number one, we've listed the 10, 11 conditions of approval, including a site plan, which the applicant has provided, just needs a few tweaks. And the applicant is here, the township is here, the county engineer is here to answer questions, and I'll stand for questions at this point.
Yes, Mr. Bill Johnson.
So now the dog training's not approved?
I'm sorry, what?
The dog training?
Not at this time.
Okay, with that said, looking at that housing development, looks like that's going in, is the county going to deny that, them permits on the residents since that road's in the conditions in?
I doubt it. I mean, the number of trips generated by the dog kennel, if fully realized, would be 100 to 130 more trips generated just off that property, as opposed to the 10 trips per day generated by one single-family residence. It would be a disproportionate amount of traffic generated by this one site with the 440 dogs compared to the single-family residence.
Okay.
Yes, Ms. Foster.
I have a couple of concerns. The first is water, which I'll get back to. The second is, in Wichita zoning, is there a differentiation in the definitions between dog and puppy? And when you did your calculations for 40 dogs versus 20 dogs and traffic they would generate, did we count puppies in that, and how much?
Puppies aren't counted until they reach a certain age.
6
and then
months
they become a
probably,
dog,
yeah.
and that
So,
goes towards that total.
so if this is a breeding kennel that does a significant amount of breeding, that would mean that there would be even more traffic generated, correct?
That's possible.
Okay. My second concern is that my first career long ago, I was a zookeeper, and I know how much water it takes to keep animal facilities clean. This is, as I understand it from the staff report, got a well and a sewage lagoon, though it does have potential access to rural water district number 3. Is there any intent by the applicant, do you know, to expand the sewage lagoon or somehow cope with the amount of water that's going to come off these dog kennels? Or is that something that's not our purview and it's strictly up to the county environmental enforcement people?
I think that would be up to the county environmental enforcement people.
Okay, those were my 2 concerns. Thank you.
Mr. McKay?
Bill, I got a couple of questions. Number one, you keep referring to the 10 or 11 different residences that are out there, and I'm looking at the aerial photo, the satellite photo. What is the closest, other than the applicant's resident, is to the area in which we're talking about, the backside of this 20 acres? There's one to the south, it looks like.
I think actually the property to the north, the residence to the north is the closest to the property line of the applicant, and then it would be the property to the south. Now, there
talking
are
about
no
the actual
residences to the
resident.
east.
Actual residence.
Yeah. The one to the south is an actual residence.
Okay, so that's the only one I can see that's halfway close, other than the applicant's property.
Well, if there is, again, there is a residence on the north side there in that 77 acres. It's covered up mostly by the trees on the aerial, and it's not easily visible from the road.
Okay. Second thing is, the way I look at this plot plan is that the traffic will be generated, the people will not be going basically to the south. I would guess it'd be coming from the north and going through the existing property where the people live, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that, Mr. McKay?
Your site plan.
Yes.
The way I read it, that to get to this back portion where you're gonna have the animals at, it comes from the northwest corner of the property, correct?
Correct.
So that's, all right.
Yeah, you can see the drive, and then the circle there, that would be the drop-off and parking area.
Okay, in your pictures that you took where you showed there was no ditches or the roads went from 60 to, or 80 to 60 feet?
Yes.
Is that the north line of this property?
Yes. That's the south line of this property. The ditches that we showed earlier, they stop short of this property on the north side.
Well, I guess what I'm saying to you is that it doesn't look like to me that that's hardly even a road there. I see Webb Road is, but 95th, it looks like it's hardly not even anything according to your picture there.
It's a small road, it's a narrow road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? I guess the only one that I'm concerned with is putting a restriction on the number of animals allowed contingent upon development of that street and not having any idea when that might occur. I guess we'll just have to wait for the applicant to see if he can do what he's wanting to do with the limited number of animals that we are looking at this point allowed.
That, and also the county engineer of the township could
Right.
weigh in on that also.
Yeah, because it's disconcerting for me that if we were to approve this without any conditions or without any concerns, it seems kind of fruitless to approve it if the roads can't accommodate it, and no idea when the roads, that's not my point.
Understood.
So, at this point, is the agent or applicant here for this case? If you could step forward and state your name and address, and you have 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Lucas Powell. My address is 10,080 South Webb Road, which is the location that I'm proposing to build this dog facility. The concerns that I have with the limitations that Mr. Longnecker has suggested is potential revenue. So I intend to have a professionally designed and professionally built facility that will be approximately 4,800 square feet. And that's going to potentially cost in the neighborhood of $500,000 to build the property. And my projected revenues on, if I'm looking at just the capacity for 20 dogs and to do boarding only, cuts my revenue possibilities down by almost 70%. The bulk of my revenue stream would be able to come from the obedience training, doing board and train programs, doing the dog daycare. That's going to be the larger portion of my revenue stream. At a 40 dog capacity, I can make it profitable and make the business survive. I'm worried that if I'm only able to do 30% of what I was planning with half of the capacity that I was planning to begin with, if I'll even be able to keep the business afloat at that point. But in terms of concerns about nuisance to the neighbors or anything like that, I took that stuff into consideration when I was making my plans. The facility is going to be built, like he said, on the east side of that center hedgerow, and those hedgerows are mature 50, 60 foot tall hedge trees that have been there for, I don't know, 100 years or something. But I'm building it that far back on the property to try to separate it as much as possible from the surrounding property owners. And the building will be over 750 feet from Webb Road. Somebody had a question about the closest residence, and that is the 10,100, which is the property to the south. That property to the north, there is a small shed that's just on the north side of my property line, where that little cutout of trees is on the southwest portion of that pond. But it is a cabin that is not a permanent residence or a primary residence. The property owners come out there occasionally when the weather's nice and to use the pond and enjoy the outdoors. There's an old farmstead house that's up on 95th on that piece of property, but it's abandoned and basically condemned. So the closest resident, which is my point, is that one to the south. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has as far as what I'm planning and trying to do.
Do you have any questions? Yes, Mr. Dewell?
Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts on the concerns about the roads and the volume of traffic would occur under your plan for the 40 animals?
Okay. I think the planning department's concern is the dog daycare portion of it, that would generate 2 trips down that road per day, one when they come and drop it off, one when they come and pick it up. They did a traffic study that showed 130 to 150 cars going down the road per day. It would generate more traffic, but my rebuttal to that would be this 90 home development that's going in 1.5 miles to the south. That is also definitely going to increase the traffic on that road. To what degree, I can't say. But the traffic will be increased on that road regardless of whether I'm able to start this business or not. And it's still going to fall on the township to maintain that, whether I have a business here or not. So I feel like that is a little bit of a mitigating factor as to whether or not I can do 20 or 40 or whatever it is. But the like I said, I have concerns about the limitation of 20 dogs and boarding only, because that's only about 30% of my business plan, basically. I had conversations with the trustee, Mr. Thornburg, and we were talking about how long it would take to improve the road to the point where it would handle the additional traffic from my business. He did not give me a solid answer as far as time frame, but he thought that within a 2-year time he would have the tax revenue in order to be able to build it up to the point where it needed to be. And my plans are going to take a minimum of 2 years before I'm ever operational. I gotta get a hold of the architect, have him design it, then the construction, and then setting everything else up. It will be a minimum of 2 years before I'm ready to open the doors for business anyway. So I think that and Mr. Thornburg, I think, might weigh in on this, but at one point he had said that in about 2 years we can have the road to the point where it needs to be to handle that extra traffic.
Okay. Are there any other questions for the agents? Or I guess the applicant? Yes.
Yeah, sorry. I did want to address your concern about the water. Like I said, it's going to be professionally designed by the architects, and I'm assuming that we're going to tie into rural resident or the rural water district for that at a commercial level. So I will be able to handle the water demand that it's going to take to keep the place clean and the dogs hydrated and stuff like that.
Thank you. It's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
You were mentioning Mr. Thornburg, is that?
Yes, he's the Rockford Township trustee.
Yeah, it may be out of order here, but could I have you step forward for just a minute, please? I've got a question on the street, on the road, way. Yeah, I understand. Don't forget your walking stick.
I can make it this far.
Okay. If we could just have your name and address for the record.
It's Don Thornbrew. I'm at 10725 South Ellen in Rockford Township, Mulvane.
The question I have, and you can probably guess what it's going to be, but because I've got some concerns. I did appreciate Mr. Powell's comments concerning that 2-year window that you had mentioned to him, and him not being up for operational for probably 2 years. What
is some confusion there? That was a goal. I can't commit to that.
Okay.
Because when I get a chance, I'll get further into that.
Okay. What are when you are considering road improvements, what do you use for a basis on which road is higher up on the ladder for improvement versus those that don't make it up that ladder for more improvement that would be necessary? Do you use traffic counts and that type of information?
I've looked at traffic counts from Sedgwick County and from KDOT. We did a traffic count on that road, and there's a discrepancy there. What I was told verbally was that the average count was 285 cars a day, which is different than what we heard earlier. I'm not exactly sure how that difference occurred. And I can't find the email or the text message where that was given back to me, but I did request the traffic count, and that was the number that was given to me.
Currently that's what?
Yeah, that was about 3 weeks ago.
Okay, and so the projected traffic count?
Well, based on the 90 homes that are going in, It's hard to come up with a number there because people will be coming off of 95th down Webb to get home, coming across 103rd from Greenwich to get home, and coming in off of Rock Road to get home. It's just have to make a guess. I don't know. I mean, I can make a guess. It would probably be, well, just for the facility as proposed, it looked to me like we would have 25 to 30% increase in traffic, just on that 1 mile of Webb. Plus the new development going in, 90 homes, 180 cars or more, depending if they have kids or not. All of them probably making at least one trip a day up and down that road. You're talking conceivably 400 to 500 cars a day down that 1 mile section of dirt road. Now, as to how I prioritize, every road in Rockford Township, in my mind, has the same need for maintenance and improvement as any other mile. When I took office, my position was that every township resident had the right for a drivable road and emergency vehicle access. And I still support that statement. Since this improvement has been proposed, you saw the dirt alongside the road. My goal, because Webb, when it rains and when it snows, that portion of Webb has been notoriously bottomless. We've focused a lot of attention on it since January when I took office. We've graded that road probably a dozen times, put road material on it, I don't know how many tons, to try to solidify the surface. I don't know, we haven't had a real hard rain, we haven't seen a snowstorm, I don't know how successful we've been. But I had anticipated working on the drainage on that road over the summer. South of Logan's house on the east side of the road, which that's kind of what it looks like. There is no ditch. There's a tree line. We haven't got there yet with the backhoe to try to make a ditch. We started on the north side of his property, and obviously not complete there yet on the east side of the road. We haven't started on the west side. But I moved that up on the schedule because I knew this was going to be up for discussion, and I fully support Logan's right to use his property, but not to the extent that it impacts the rest of the township. I will help every way I can to make him successful within the constraints of my budget, again, without reducing my ability to service the rest of the township. The road surface, I thought I was pretty clear in my communications with the engineering people. That road, even if I were completely done with the drainage on both sides of the road, in inclement weather, that road surface will not support this load. It needs to be improved. I don't have the budget to do that. You've heard, and I've been told, that it's on a watch list for asphalt. In my mind, that would be the gating factor to let Logan go full bore with his facility. Until that road is improved with the anticipated traffic that's coming, I don't see how we can do it. I can't provide a drivable surface for the residents and his customers, the people that will use that road from Mulvane, without having some type of hard surface. Whether that would be KG&E rock, which I don't have the budget to put on, or asphalt, again, which I don't have the budget for. So I would ask that you consider that.
Thank you for your testimony. Do you have any questions? Yes, Mr. Matei?
Sir, with the 90 houses and this project, how much tax base will that add to your township to help do whatever you're wanting to do?
None.
None whatsoever?
It's in Mulvane city limits.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So we get the problem, we don't get any of the benefit.
Okay.
Thank you so
Any other
much.
questions?
Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to address the commission on this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? Hearing none, we can bring it back to the agent for 2 minutes rebuttal.
Yes, thank you. I don't have any further comments. Are there any other questions that had come up from any of you guys?
It's a tough one. I know there are no promises that in 2 years you can have the road for you. I know that you're thinking that in 2 years you'll be up and you'll be ready to do what you're wanting to do. There's putting roads on for upgraded maintenance and or pavement. At least I know in the city that traffic counts have a very large bearing on that need for the roads to be paved. I guess I'm kind of talking, supposed to be your term, but you just don't see a way that you can make it work with the 20 animals.
It's if that's a place that I have to start, I would have to go back and look at options and maybe change some plans a little bit. Whether that be downsizing the facility that I build, or I don't know, figuring out another way to approach it. Whether maybe I need to put it off for 3 to 4 years before I get it started. But without knowing when the road is going to be usable for me to put 40 or 50 more cars a day on it, it's hard for me to make the commitment to spend the money to build the facility that I ultimately want to build, without knowing that I can have the revenue stream to pay the bills, essentially. But if that's a place where I have to start, then I can reassess what my plan is. Again, like I said, whether it's putting it off for another year or two before I actually start, or how I need to approach that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Ms. Fox. Ms. Fox.
It's all right. Have you considered or approached the city of Mulvane and asked them what their potential for annexation up that road is, since there's apparently a large development going in?
I have not asked them. I know that Mr. Longnecker had some conversation with them about what was going on with that development, and I don't know if that is part of their 2010 to 2030 plan. I think you mentioned that it is going to remain agricultural in that neighborhood according to whatever long-term plan it is that he was looking at.
So there's,
but I have not contacted them.
So there's little chance that We could put this on the city of Mulvane's budget and let the casino pay for it?
Well, I would say it hasn't happened in the last 50 years, so probably.
Just a thought.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions for Mr. Logan? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Or for Logan. Mr. Powell. So, yes.
I like Ms. Foster's idea.
Oh.
But I think that the item that we're talking about today is not going to do near much creation road problems for anybody as the 90 houses that's going to go in there. So for us to say to this gentleman, you know, whether it be 20 or 30 or 40 or whatever that might be, that we turn this application down, no opposition, the staff approves it, just not as many animals to start off with. So I would hate to see this be turned down just simply because of that situation.
Yes, Mr. Johnston and Mr. Bill.
Bill, if it became where he could have the 40 dogs, would that also be able to have the training facility then?
Yes. Yeah, I
So it'd be
mean,
a complete plan.
the complete plan. Now, you know, one other entity that's been discussing these roads is the county engineer, who is, you know, you might want to have him weigh in on this. There was some discrepancy between the county counts over a 3-day period and what the township is. I went with the county counts. So, and the county would be, you know, they're the ones that are going to set the milestone to say it's ready. But we just heard the township saying, you know, in regards to surfacing this road, they would like to do more than rock, but it's...
Well, I mean, I think there's probably, I got a gravel road by my house I'd like to see it paved, but it's not happening. But I guess what I'm wondering, if we took and approved a deal today where we said it's 20 dogs, and 2 years from now, you could go to 40 dogs, would that, I would think that would put the pressure on county engineer, township, to get that in a position to take it. It appears to me, I know these roads ain't real wide, but if bus services run up and down these, they gotta be somewhat decent. Probably not ideal. I guess I'm just asking.
You know, again, you know, from what I've heard from the county and the townships, it would seem, it still seems arbitrary in my mind to put a time frame on it because of the revenue. The question of the revenue needed to maintain not only this road, but the other 41 and 43 miles of roads they got to maintain. It's my understanding the way the township maintains this is the revenue source is a mill levy,
Yeah.
which would basically a property tax on everybody.
But it looks like to me, if they start digging some ditches along what they've got there, where they get the moisture off of the road bed, it's gonna be better than it is today.
Mr. Dool?
So is this a development to the south? Is this in Sedgwick County or is it in Sumner County?
Are you talking about the Mulvane Development, sir?
Yes.
That, right now, the Mulvane Pool is on, what is it? It's a mile south of 103rd. What is that, 111th? And Webb Road. Right north of the pool, Mulvane's got platted. They've got for 90 single-family residents.
Right.
And they're pretty ambitious in regards to that being built out. They're saying it should be built out in 2 years. Well, there's no guarantee that's going to happen the way things are with materials. But, and again, we can't, at this point, is my understanding, you can't really tell how many of those cars are going to be using Webb Road at this, you know, surely some might want a kennel, but we don't know what the impact of those 94 homes that will, after it's developed out, which basically bumps up to that railroad that you see going diagonally, that put it within a mile of the residents and the dog kennel. So We're not sure what those 95 homes, that impact's gonna be, but they're gonna be on Webb Road, that section of Webb Road that's already paved, and they can get to 103rd or 111th, if they're heading west, that's paved, so it's all about, you know, it seems to be about the revenue available to make the improvements and let alone maintain this road. And again, as the township said, the responsibility to be able to provide that service to all the folks in the township in regards to maintenance of those roads. So I didn't put a time frame on it. I just asked the county, can we use a milestone? And the milestone's all about physical improvements, and the physical improvements are dependent upon revenue.
Well, the county line cuts through Mulvane, and it just seems to me that if Sumner County is the one that is involved in platting these 90 homes and putting the burden on Sedgwick.
This part of the homes is in Sedgwick County.
It's all in Sedgwick County.
Yeah, it's on
Okay. That's a clarification.
Mulvane's divided right at Main Street downtown. So this is a couple of miles north of Main Street, the county line. The Mulvane development is entirely in Sedgwick County.
So it's conceivable that Sedgwick County could take some action on that road.
You need to talk to Mr. Packer, the county engineer, in regards.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm just wondering.
Okay.
For my own education. Okay.
Mr. Wadle?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide some more color or clarification to the staff's answering of the questions. So the swimming pool, the Mulvane swimming pool, is located at the northwest corner of the intersection of 111th and Webb Road. Webb Road is paved from 111th Street. According to the aerial, it appears that it's paved up to 103rd Street.
Which we showed on the photograph.
Yes, and so this property in question is north of 103rd Street where it turns into dirt road. So I just want to make sure everyone's got that information.
Is Mr. Packer? Yeah. Want to weigh in?
Yeah, this is Lynn Packer, Sedgwick County Public Works. I will just start off by saying that I think everything that's been said thus far is accurate. The one thing I would like to be very clear about is that this is a Rockford Township maintained road. And in the end, we defer to their opinion on what they can and can't do for maintenance. As far as future development and the impact that will have on paving of a road, typically the paving of a section road, if it's not done by the township themselves, would result in the county taking over maintenance of that road. So if development were to occur in the area and we saw a significant spike in traffic, that is something that would land this section road on our radar. And if we ended up paving it, not the township, but if we ended up paving it, we would then assume maintenance from the township. Based on current growth and barring a Walmart opening up across the street from the proposed dog kennel, I'm not seeing a huge uptick in traffic in this particular mile. I agree with the sentiment that was made earlier. Getting the water off the road, getting bar ditches in there, is a great start to helping produce a good base for that road and making maintenance of that road easier. And that was the crux of our comment to Mr. Longnecker. That's the great start. If you can get that drainage taken care of, then everything else can fall into place a lot easier with maintaining that road. So I just want to be clear about as far as future development and who's maintaining the road. There is no standard that we have, and Sedgwick County does not officially have any plans whatsoever to pave this section of road. It's on our radar.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Packer?
Not for Mr. Packer, just a general comment on that.
Thank you, Lynn.
It seems to me that we're trying to guess and compromise here on insufficient data that isn't available. If the applicant is willing to take the risk to invest in this facility knowing that the road may not support the traffic, but there's a 2-year lead time for whoever, the county or the township, to figure out a way to make this road work, which I sympathize with the budget constraints of the township trustees, but keeping the roads drivable is part of their job, and I think if they've got 2 years lead time, they ought to be able to figure out a way to make that happen. I don't think we should restrict down to 20 dogs. If the facility is economically feasible at 40 dogs on the business plan that's been done, I think that's a reasonable thing to permit.
Is that your motion?
I hadn't thought of that as a motion or as a comment, but if you want me to make it a motion, consider it a motion, 40 dogs.
I would second that.
Mr. Buell on the second on that. Yes, Mr. Johnson?
What I'd like to add on that, though, is that the township gets the ditches dug and get the drainage somewhat taken care of on this road prior to him occupying 40 dogs.
All righty. Any questions on the motion?
How would that work? I mean, we're doing a motion to approve an application from the applicant, not from the township. How do we have any control over what the township does or doesn't do?
And I'm just going by the comment he made that they were gonna work on it this summer and get the ditches.
And that's wonderful, but we don't have any authority over the township, do we?
I don't know that it was, I don't know that it was a substitute motion. I think it was just a
comment.
A shot over a shot over the bow, if you will.
Okay.
So, okay, yes, Mr. McKay?
Repeat the motion because I'm a little confused now that Bill threw his.
I would like to move that we approve item 4.2 per staff comments with the exception of the 20-dog limit noted in item 1. I think the applicant should be able to plan his 2-year plan for 40 dogs.
So instead of the 20 dog.
No, I understand that, but Bill threw in about the ditches, and I just want to make sure that was not part of the motion.
She didn't have it.
And the second, yes.
I have a question. Okay, when you say 40 dogs, are we including on-site training, individual and group training? Are we including dog daycare? I mean, you said 40 dogs. There's 40
yes,
dogs
I
involved.
basically am saying my motion would be to approve what the applicant originally applied for as far as his facility services and the number of dogs both.
His original request. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Next case, I need to find out, I didn't ask earlier, is the agent or applicant available for this case? Jim Michael, excuse me? He is. Okay. All right, perfect. Kathy?
Thank you. Yes, I want to flip through the slides real quick because this is agricultural. As you can see from the zoning map to the west, there is it's Meadow Hills subdivision, and it's got about 10 homes in it. So if you'll go through so you can see there, agricultural to the north, to the east, and to the south. Next one. This is within the Derby area of influence. And the Derby Planning Commission did hear this case on June 3rd. They did vote to approve the request for the scatter garden. The scatter garden request, scatter garden cemetery is kind of a new concept in Kansas. I know some of the cemeteries have a facility where you can scatter ashes and also inter cremains, but the applicant has stated that this would be only for scattering of ashes. There would be no headstones. There would be no stones in the ground like a footstone or whatever, and they would be allowed to bury cremains that would have to be biodegradable to protect the environment. And I did add on your staff report the information about the environmental impacts from the cremation process. Go to the next slide, please. And he asked this for the entire acreage, but as you can see by the site plan, it's just along the west and north boundary that they will be doing the area, the scatter garden area. The rest of that property is brome grass that they harvest cut for hay. Next one. This is looking north from the northeast corner there on 127th Street. And you can see those white poles sticking up. He's already started planting the trees to create a barrier on both sides of where the scatter garden is. Next. There you can see that that's looking west from along the north property line. There are mature trees scattered throughout, but this is going to supplement that tree line. Thank you. Next. This is looking southwest to the opposite corner. The property is not flat, so it's a little bit rolling. Next one. So we're looking south on 127th Street toward 79th Street. And it does have, they do have bar ditches and whatever along there. Next. This is looking back to the north from the intersection of 127th and 79th. There is a pond there. As I said, you can still see some of the existing vegetation. Next. And this is looking back over to the northwest corner of the property. There's a mature line of trees between the west property line and the Meadow Hills addition. That appears to be on the Meadow Hills addition properties. Next. Looking west from the southeast corner, if you could move the pointer, your pointer, or can I do that? I can do that. Okay, so the pond that we saw earlier is in this location. Next. Okay, so this is the southwest corner. Again, you see the white poles, whatever, that is protecting, they're protecting the new trees that the owner planted. Next. And this is looking back northeast toward 127th Street, the northeast corner of the property. Next. This is looking east along 79th Street, the south property line. As you can see, there is a good drainage ditch there. Next. Okay, would you go back to the site plan, please? There was some information put in your packet about licensing and things like that, getting the appropriate certifications from the Kansas State office, and then also there are funeral directors, and I believe that, Jim can answer those questions more fully, but at this point, I will take any questions.
Do we have any questions? Yes.
One, Kathy, on page 3, under the recommendations, items 1 and 2, is the requirement in number 2 that the cremains be interred in a container as opposed to simply scattered, as in scattered on the surface? Is that a Kansas statutory requirement, or is that the owner's choice?
They can do either. They can scatter, or if somebody has cremains that they want to bury, the point was that there will be no marker on the ground. And that biodegradable, that has to do with the environmental issues that as cremains, as your body disintegrates, that there could be some environmental issues with heavy metals, that type of thing. That's why you were provided with this cremation process and what the composition of your ashes would be.
Yeah, thank you. That was helpful.
Yes, Mr. McKay?
Looking at the plat that you got here, am I reading this wrong? 127th is on the east, and 79th on the south.
Yes.
But the area that we're talking about that's going to have the scatter of the remains is on the west and the north. How do we get, is there going to be a road system or something within that two long narrow strips?
Yeah, yes, there will be. At this point, there's going to be an entrance off of 79th Street, and the applicant is working with the county to improve some of those bar ditches and get culverts in. This will be a very limited access. The intention is that it will be immediate family members that would come out and scatter ashes. There would be no formal, like, graveside services. So they're not anticipating more than, even 10 cars that will be in there. And he will provide parking areas along within the scatter garden area.
I guess what I'm asking is there going to be some type of all-weather road that they can get clear back into the northwest corner of this piece of property?
You know what, I'm going to let the applicant answer that, because I think that's going to develop as they expand the scatter garden.
Yes, Mr. Dool?
So on the remains that would be interred or buried, are there like plots out here like in a normal cemetery, or do they just choose wherever they want to bury them in this land?
The entity would maintain a location of where the cremains were interred. There is it's not like you would go by a cemetery plot where you pay for a specific area. So, yeah.
Any other questions? I just have one. You may have mentioned this when you were going through the pictures. And the trees that have been planted out there with the white, is that the 100?
Right, that sets the boundary.
Boundary?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions for our staff at this point? None? If we could have the agent or applicant come forward.
Sure.
And if you could state your name and address for the record, and you have 10 minutes.
My name is Jim Michael, address 7627 East 37th Street, Wichita, 67226. Thank you for allowing me to take this time to talk to you a little bit. There's a little bit of background. I'm a 501c3 organization under the state and the federal guidelines. This land came to us along with another 40 acres to the north as a donation from a will, from an estate. And he also gave us the land that's to the east, 160 acres to the southeast. And there's about 100 acres to the south, which is still in his family trust. And the acreage that's to the north is been gifted to the Episcopal Church, particularly the Episcopal Church Social Services and their breakthrough program. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not, but if you are, it's a pretty good, darn good program. I wouldn't take this project on had it not been that I've got a partner here, an associate that we're working with at the breakthrough program. Basically what happens is somebody contacts the Episcopal Services and says we either have a scattering that we want to do or an internment. They take care of the paperwork or check, and in a lot of cases, because of COVID, it's already been taken care of. People have urns that they're setting on the jars on the mantle, waiting to figure out what they're going to do with it. A prairie in Kansas is about as sacred as it gets, except for wetlands and forested areas. And we create wetlands on that 80 acres that's next to us. The 40 acres that we looked at, we keep in hay. When we got it, it was a really abused cattle ground. Nothing but thistles and reed canary grass, and if you know what that is, it's not good for anything except irritation. So we improved it along the north side between us and the Episcopal Church, and along the west side between us and the Mott family. We moved out and put 225 plus trees, 25 feet spaced in a row and 25 feet staggered apart so that we can create a windbreak of oak trees up there. They're slow growing, but they're now 5 years been there, and they're coming out of the top of those tubes. We also have another 15 feet out that is what we call quail bundles, and that's for quail to gather into and run out and feed and run back and hide. And the goal that we looked at it and said, what can we do to help this community? This community is hurting. There's a lot of people that have these urns, and they're calling us and saying, can we scatter, can we do this? And we're saying, let's back up, let's do this thing right. When you ask a question about it being gridded or plotted or whatever, we intend to grid it because we have to know where that location of something, if it was interned. Most places that deal with this always put it in an urn. In some cases don't, but if we're going to do it, it's going to be biodegradable urns because we're a conservation organization. And around that is packed, for lack of a better term, Scott turf soil around it because human ashes are caustic when they have been burned, cremated. So we're just providing a better place in the ground for it to be. Our encouragement, though, is for those that really have a free spirit or want to, scatter those ashes in the wind. It's going to go over 35 acres, and that acres is going to be cut for hay. Now, I've given some stuff to staff here. I think it got too late to your packets, but it's there and available, and they'll give it to you on the degradation that occurs through typical casket burials and stuff. And I'm not knocking that a bit. If that's your choice, that's your choice. We're just got another option. We worked with the township. They came to us and said our interest was going to be off 127th, and I agree. We've down here, 127th looked like inside of a racetrack at a Saturday night destruction derby. And I'm no disrespect to him. It's just what we've got, what we got to work with. So at his request, we moved the entrance over to 127th Street, or over to 79th Street, and so it's coming off of there. I did, and I don't know how much detail you want me to give you, but I'm going to jump to the only comment letter that we got was from the Motts, and I'm going to answer those questions that came up here. I had a meeting with them last Saturday. I met with Michael and Jane, and I met with a gentleman by the name of Randy Lander, former police department from here in the city of Wichita. Nice group of people, but I needed to sit down face to face and say, this is what we got, this is what's going on. What they wanted, a request for approval, was access to the property be secured by gates. We planned on that. The last thing I want is people coming out into a 40-acre field, especially in Kansas, and driving around. Gates be closed and locked at all times except for scheduled monitoring. That's the only way we want it, because we don't want a free access out there. That we be closed and locked by either our personnel or authorized personnel, and that would be us or people from the Episcopal Church. And that the fence line to the west be left intact. It's an old fence line. It's been put in there 50 years ago. Like most fence lines put in 50 years ago, it's not true north and south. It goes a little bit east on one end, a little bit west on the other, and it waggles a little bit in the middle. I don't mind leaving that, but it is outside of the area that we're talking about here. If that wall behind you was the property bound between us and the Motts, you come out 17 feet, that's where that old wobbly fence is. You come out 20 feet, that's where the boundary of the cemetery is. You go out another 100 feet, that covers both rows of trees, all the rows of the quail habitat, and gives me another 35 or 40 feet out there that people can walk on and scatter ashes. I do not intend, unless to put in a trail system for cars. Cigarettes out the window, whatever creates a problem in Kansas that we have every day. We do anticipate that if somebody wants to come out and visit, they can call us, make arrangements, walk up to the trail. We'll have a setting area close to the parking lot, but that's about the extent of it. And we'll start at the 79th Street, closest to the road, and start going up as we get those plots. Our money, if we make any money off of it, is going to go back into trees and plantings and so on. What the church makes off of their money is going to be from to go to their breakthrough program. Now, we have a representative from the church here. If you'd like to take some of my time, give it to him, ask questions. I'm open, whatever is convenient for you.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Michael? Yes, Mr.
Yes,
Warren?
just out of curiosity, how large will the plots be, and how many, have you calculated how many plots you could have in this amount of land that you're?
We were roughly look at a plot as being 18 inches by 18 inches, but I'm giving it 2 feet by 2 feet just because I want the extra wiggle room, so to speak. And as far as marking them, we would like to mark them with what's called a footstone, like you'd see it, but at ground surface. So that way, if we ever have to go back and locate them for some reason, don't think we ever would, but nowadays they're coming back sometimes and wanting to, if they've got an urn, wanting to get ashes for an advanced autopsy or something like that. Okay. But it's not no headstones. I want you to be able to drive down 79th or 127th, and it still looks like a field.
Any other questions?
I got a question.
Yes, Mr. Harper.
So, how big an area are you gonna set aside for parking?
For 10 cars.
10 cars.
And I've got an ingress and egress and exit in and out, so that way they don't have to take a lot of space up. We're going to berm them a little bit so they don't get the idea they can drive out in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And people are kind of that way sometimes.
Okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Is there anyone in the chambers that would like to address the commission on this? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually? I believe Ms. Mott may have been on.
I am still on. This is Jane Mott. the neighbor.
Yes, and if
And
you
the address is
we could have your address,
1230.
please, for the record.
Okay, it's 12300 East 79th Street South in Derby, 67037. And we submitted the list of concerns that we had, which Jim has addressed. As he said, he came by the other day and had the conversation with us. I think our main concern has always been whether that, whether a driveway there or a parking lot would encourage loitering or, vandalism, theft, those kind of things in the area. And I think he has addressed that concern very well, stating that he would make sure that it's gated and that the gate remain locked except when, in use. So, and then the fence line is the other thing, just to, from my perspective, just to have a clear boundary between, even though that is beyond the scatter garden, just to have a clear boundary between the two properties. And by leaving that intact or replacing it with another fence, I think satisfies that. So I think we feel like our concerns have been addressed.
Thank you, Ms. Mott. Do we have any questions for the speaker? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else from the virtually that would like to address the commission at this time? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to you, Mr. Michael, for 2 minutes of rebuttal.
I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lloyd back here, unless you have his comments, if that's okay.
Yeah, if you just
I will be glad to answer any questions anytime for you. Staff's been great to work with, so.
Any other questions?
Mike, if you want to come down.
Thank you. Oh.
Just going to let Mike come down, if that's okay.
Sure. I think we're ready to make a decision.
Go ahead.
I'll be real quick.
It'll be a joint decision. How's that?
I'm Mike Lloyd, and pastor of St. Andrew's Episcopal Church in Derby. I'm also a board member of Episcopal Social Services Breakthrough. And we are, as Jim explained, we're in a partnership with the Sunflower Land Trust in this project. And again, Episcopal Social Services and Breakthrough will pretty much manage most of the administrative tasks like securing permits, any necessary permits, working with funeral homes, working with the families, and establishing fees for this service. And those fees have not totally been determined at this time, but they will be less than a traditional burial. And that's one thing that appeals to a lot of people when it comes to interment of the remains of loved ones as well. Another thing that's really, Episcopal Social Services and Breakthrough will handle any kind of marketing projects as well, getting things up on our website. And Jim also explained about some sort of a mapping where family members could locate where their loved ones might be placed. And we will do something like that where people who have chosen to have their loved ones interred into the biodegradable urn, into the little space there, can locate where their loved ones are placed. So, just to give you an example, there is a lot of interest in having this service available in this area, and especially the way it's the Sunflower Land Trust has envisioned this to be a totally natural preserve. I think that really appeals to people, knowing that their loved ones are going to be placed in this natural environment. And again, like Jim says, if you go out there now, it looks like basically a hay pasture, but all the any vegetation that is planted will be natural. and I think Jim and I have talked about it, if a loved one does want to have some flowers maybe placed where their loved one was interred, it would be a natural perennial of some sort, again, preserving the natural landscape. And just a quick example of how this service appeals to people. One of our church members, her husband died unexpectedly over 2 years ago, and they chose to have him cremated. And they live in the Rose Hill area, but they've been waiting for the right place to have his remains placed. And when I mentioned that this project was in the works, they were totally excited and thought this would be just wonderful to have his remains placed in this environment, in this location that's right there close to the Derby Rose Hill area. They live in the Rose Hill area. They board some horses right there in the neighborhood, and she thought that'd be great for when they're out there with the horses to be able to look out there to where her husband's remains are. So that's just an example of the kind of things that really appeals to people when it comes time to these decisions that they're making in placing the remains of their loved ones. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you.
I'm assuming that you have, are in agreement with the conditions that were in the
Yes,
packet today.
we are,
So
yes.
with that, I think we'll go ahead and bring it back to the commission for action.
Move to approve per staff comments.
Second.
A motion has been made by Ms. Foster to approve per staff comment, second by Ms. Fox. Are there any questions on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Next case is PUD 2110, located at 4640 East 15th Street. Philip?
Good afternoon again, Philip Ziebenbergen with planning staff, PUD 2110. The applicant is requesting a zone change from single-family residential to PUD planned unit development to establish the Wynn Senior Village planned unit development on a property generally located about 15th and Oliver. It's actually 15th and Pershing, as you can see on the map in front of you. Project description states there'll be a low-density multifamily development, housing facilities serving exclusively individuals 55 years of age and over. The senior apartment complex will have on-site community gathering building, intended to offer residential activities, community personal care services, personal improvement services, general office spaces, and in-house facility management. This type of a senior living complex is not a nursing care facility. It is a residential care facility, so it's not something that has to be licensed by the state. They just will have an age requirement in order to be leased to. If this sounds familiar, it should. This was first brought before the Planning Commission in fall of 2020. It was actually heard by the Planning Commission in January of 2021. At that time, the Planning Commission denied the application. The applicant withdrew the application prior to it going to City Council, so it did not get a final action. If we want to skip ahead to the case history, I'll briefly go over the differences between this application and the one that was previously submitted by the applicant. There's a table under case history from PUD 2020-07, which was the one heard in January, and this one, the 2110. Both will have a base zone of multifamily MF18. So for uses that are permitted by right in MF18, in addition to that, they both will have personal care services and personal improvement services, which basically kind of lump together for like nail salon, hair salon, licensed massage therapy, things of that nature. Also like a laundromat could be in there as well. They both will have community assembly, and that's primarily for the residents to be able to have a Community activities on site. Trying to not get feedback here. Where it differs greatly is this application is requesting general office as a use and not a restaurant that would have the option of serving alcohol. So the personal care and personal improvement services, as well as the general office services, would be in the existing school building. If you want to go to the aerial, Paul, I think that would be helpful. So you have the existing school building on the south end of the site. Basically any type of commercial activity would be limited to the existing school building. The applicant discussed that they would be renting out existing classroom spaces. The community assembly could happen in, I think they said it would be what was the former library of the school building. So all the residential stuff, there's a site plan we can look at too. All the apartments would be built on the north end of the site, and then the existing school building would be there to accommodate leasing out for office space. For office general is like you have a law office, or if somebody has their own business, like they're an architect or an engineer. Basically just office spaces in general. Typically would have fairly low impact. Traffic-wise, it can kind of depend on the office use. So it's not, fully fleshed out as to, who would be occupying. It's basically giving the foundation to then go out and let the market decide. Are there going to be offices in the school building? Will it be a mix of offices with personal care and personal improvement? It's kind of one of those things, the chicken and the egg, where you can't necessarily line somebody up unless you can guarantee that they have the space. Sometimes you need to provide them the space in order for them to be interested in occupying that space. Going over some, just a little bit of particulars at a high level here. Parking is sufficient. There's a total of 197 parking spaces on the site. That is actually in excess when you break it down to the use categories and what their parking requirements are. That's actually in excess of parking. I know in the previous application there was a concern of whether or not there was going to be enough parking provided. Given the way that one was written and the uses that were proposed in that one, they were actually going to be requesting a parking reduction. This one is not doing that. They're actually providing an excess of parking that is on site. Again, it is not street parking. It is all parking within the property boundaries of the area. Because there will be multifamily as well as commercial uses, screening is required and landscape buffering is required on the north and the east property lines. They will also be screening the parking on the west side. If you want to go to the site plan, Paul, I think there we go. The parking on the west side will have a solid screening fence for the extent of the parking lot. There will not be a solid screening fence along the entire west boundary, but there will be a screening fence along the west parking lot to screen from the residential uses across the street. We have looked through the signage, and we have it was basically handled through the last one, and there's no changes to the signage, allowing let me just get to it here. Apologize. One monument sign to be along 15th Street with a maximum height of 6 feet and a maximum area of 90 square feet. There shall be wall-mounted lettering signage shall be allowed along Pershing with a maximum area of 90 square feet. The use of electronic or internally lighted signs is prohibited. Ground-mounted lighting is permitted, and one ground-mounted illuminated directory sign is permitted as well. Something that wasn't even required by staff, it was just offered up by the applicant, is that trash collection would be limited between the hours of 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Again, just to minimize, they're going to have dumpsters on site because it's going to be an apartment complex as well as potential office uses that, you're not going to have a trash truck coming up at 4 o'clock in the morning, banging dumpsters and picking up trash when residential uses around there are trying to sleep. So we can go through site pictures. Actually, before we get to there, you can leave it there, but I'll just go over this. There are two plans that govern this site. The comprehensive plan identifies the area as appropriate for commercial uses, which encompasses and reflects the full diversity of commercial development intensities that are typically found in an urban municipality. Convenience, retail, restaurants, small offices, personal care uses are to be located in proximity to and potentially mixed with residential uses. So we find that this is in conformance to the comprehensive plan. There's also the Central Northeast Neighborhood Plan Update, which was adopted in 2005. Various aspects of this plan address the need and desire for senior housing and a neighborhood serving personal services. The vision statement that states that the area would like to see fully equipped senior center that serves all seniors in the area. Though this is not a senior center, it is providing housing for seniors. Additionally, Chapter 4 of the plan identifies and encourages more neighborhoods serving retail and personal services as a priority. The purpose of this PUD, we feel, meets the spirit and intent of the Northeast Neighborhood Plan. Finally, the other plan is the Wichita Places for People, which is the governing document for our infill strategy. This identifies the area as an area of opportunity, which are areas that are generally exhibit economic challenges and are with disconnected development pattern and a lack of walkable places and facilities. These areas need strategic investment, both public and private, to assist in redefining and reinvigorating the area. Something like this is something that's very akin to that type of investment we're looking for a site, that is, almost 8 acres in size, and what are you going to do with it when a school no longer occupies it? You can redevelop it. You can, it's not necessarily making it unwalkable. There are sidewalks that are not being destroyed. They're staying there. It actually can be a fairly dense, mixed-use type of development, which is very akin to walkable development, which is a goal of the Wichita Places for People plan. So we feel that it is in conformance with that plan as well. The only condition we have for an approval recommendation is that they add community assembly to the permitted uses under general provision 4. That was just kind of a carryover where it was recommended last time as well, and it's just the language not included, but that use needs to be included in order for them to do what they want to do for the community assembly aspect that they're requesting. Now I'll go through the site pictures. This is on 15th Street looking north at the existing school building. Next picture. This is looking northwest. This is still 15th in front of us, looking towards Pershing. You can see the end of the school building and where the yard, and I believe it used to be the staff parking for the school on the western half of the site. You can see some of the houses across Pershing, across the street. Next picture. This is on Pershing looking east at the site where the apartments would be constructed. Note that the apartments are limited to 2 stories in height. Next picture. This is looking northeast again at what used to be the play field and where apartments would be located. This chain link fence, according to the PUD document, would remain as kind of a boundary fence enclosing the site. Next picture. This is looking towards the school to the southeast, again along Pershing. Next picture. This is looking across the street at the houses along Pershing. Next picture. And this is looking east along 15th Street with the houses that are on the south side of 15th Street, which all of them are oriented to the side streets and none of them facing towards the school. With that, I can stand for any questions.
Questions? Yes.
This might need to be for somebody else, but the question or the pictures that were submitted of what the neighborhood felt was acceptable design, do we know if any of the non-acceptable designs actually are structures managed by the Winds?
I do not know.
Okay.
Those were submitted to me yesterday.
Okay.
So, and we just passed them along to you as public comment. Had no real time to analyze.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Ms. McDougal.
Is this the same applicant that we reviewed earlier?
Yes.
And I believe that what's missing this time that was in the original application was
The
a
restaurant.
restaurant and
right.
a bar
Mhm.
facility.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Seeing none, is the agent or applicants available? Agent or applicant? Okay. You have 10 minutes to present your case. If you can come forward, and you have 10 minutes. We could have your name, and if you could come to the podium itself. You have 10 minutes. If you could state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Tai Nguyen, and I'm acting as the CEO of the Nguyen Senior Village. I'm new in this position, and I will try to do the best I can. This is Ms. Kan Nguyen. We're not related. We have the same last name, and she is the founder of the Nguyen Village. I'm not sure what are you expecting us to present, so I'm gonna start by answering questions. If there any concern that we can answer.
Okay. Do we have any questions of the applicants?
Do they agree to the conditions that the staff brought forward?
Yes, there are some conditions that are listed here. Are you in agreement with those conditions that are in the packet?
Yes, we all agree to it. Condition of approval, yes, we do agree to it.
Okay. And Ms. Fox, do you have a question?
I don't know if it's an acceptable question. I guess I just tried to, what is your experience with multifamily development projects?
We don't have any much experience, but Ms. Khan does have own multifamily apartments. So she does have experience in managing multifamily apartments.
And were you able to see what some of the neighbors submitted as concerns?
We hold two meetings with the neighbor. We do have some support and some opposed. And we try our best to answer and address their concern. And we believe that we fulfill their question.
Can you tell me if any of the photographs in the document that was submitted by the neighbors are multifamily projects that you currently manage?
Which one are you talking about in the picture right here?
No, they submitted these yesterday, so you guys probably did not see them, but they're concerned about if you guys, those are properties that are managed by her.
No, this none of these are ours.
None of those are your properties? Yeah.
None of these are ours. Yes.
They're just random?
Yeah, I don't know where this picture come from. It's not owned anybody, Ms. Khan.
Do we have any other questions? Hearing none, if you would just kind of, if you want to go back to your seat, you can. I'm going to open it up for questions from people who may be online.
Okay.
And then, depending upon what we hear, you'll be able to come back and respond to concerns that you might hear during this portion of the meeting. So,
Yes, sir.
thank you very much. Phil, did you have something you were gonna, okay. Is there anyone in the council chambers that would like to address the commission on this case? Seeing none, is there anyone virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
Yes.
If you could state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Maxine Bostic, and I represent LRE Foundation and a charity, and we're located at 4601 Vesta Drive. and we are gravely concerned about this. I have submitted my comments and the comments of some other neighbors based on the representation of this client with other individual properties, how irresponsibly they have been handled. One that's located at 4602 Vesta Drive, I've experienced, and the one next door at 4607. I can name other addresses, but I have evidence of the kind of people that have been there and throughout this Kenmar neighborhood that the client has used, and she says she screens them, but the evidence of what they produce in noise, crime, shooting. I still have a deal in my window where one of them shot in my house while I'm away at a Bible class. Police have come out and evaluated where it came from. There's the problem. There is a senior citizen center at Shady Brook, less than a mile from here. They have at 4928 Shady Brook. There's a shopping center that would permit all of this down at Kenmar Shopping Center at 13th and Oliver, rather than coming in and bringing extra parking, extra traffic, extra litter, extra unsupervised noise, and multi-family occupancy of people that are unscreened and unattended based on those that live near us now. Why come and exploit our single family neighborhood with more of the same kind that she does with single housing? And I can speak of having been neighborhood president and having had to present information to the city council person, and I think she's online, Lavata Williams, and the client has a record of not keeping her promise and not supervising and not screening clients, and to have 80 apartments of those within a single family neighborhood is something that we pray that we don't have to endure.
Ms. Bostic, your time is up. Can you?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna give you a little bit more time, but if you're done, you're done.
You have a question?
We've got a question for you, Ms. Fox.
Ms. Bostic, I have a question. The applicant stated that they met with a neighborhood group and spoke to respond to complaints. Were you privy to that conversation?
No, I wasn't. When they called the first meeting, I was there, and I gave my comment. That was the latter part of December, 28 degrees after church one Sunday, with 3 days notice. This time, since I live so close, I've looked for the posted notice. There has not been one posted on the old Carter School fence. I did see that there was things put in my legal mailbox, which is against the law to go, and that's the same night that I'm on the bicycle and pedestrian board, which Scott knows, and I met with the board, and not with them because they know my reason for complaint. She does not supervise nor screen her clients. We have living evidence all over the neighborhood. The police department has things that we have had to report because of the Title I houses that she buys.
Thank you, Ms.
And to have any of those?
I think you've answered our question there. Are there any other questions for Ms. Bostic? Hearing none, thank you for your testimony today. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this?
Yes, sir.
If you could give us your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Bill Lynch. My address is 1662 Kenmar Street. And I just want to know the pictures that you just got through showing to the winds. Where did you get those photos from?
Just say that they're not actual now.
I'm just trying to see. I'm sorry.
The only pictures that we have on our screen have been pictures of the neighborhood.
I think you might be
We have a handout. We have a
pictures that were
handout that
submitted
had pictures on it that I think you may have
I'm
submitted.
referring to the handout.
Yeah, the handout, I think that was attached to the letter that we received from you.
Right, correct. Now, I didn't say that was the wind's property. I was just giving those as an example of what I didn't want in our neighborhood. And I have seen previous properties built in the northeast section of town that started off looking nice for probably a year or two, but then thereafter, they end up looking like those properties. Secondly, I do not want a two-story property. And I sent, the other picture shows an example, if they were to pass something like this, of the properties that I would approve of level ground properties, and to look more like the properties in our neighborhood. And they did send a little notice for a meeting that they had on the 15th.
They put it in our mailbox.
And they put it in our mailbox illegally. And the picture on the front of the brochure, I assume, was their properties, example of their properties or the property they was gonna build. And you can see I put on there, it looks like a cheap hotel, the way it's designed. And those other properties that are run down, one of them is a 3-story, but that was just an example of how it would look in the future in our neighborhood, which I've seen, in the past. And the other one is kind of built like a hotel that's, run down. That is what I don't want to see. Also, I mentioned in the letter that several researchers have found that larger and more concentrated affordable housing developments were more likely than smaller developments to have a negative impact on the nearby property values. Although more affluent neighborhoods, property values such as Tallgrass, Willow Bend, and College Hills, for example, will be less affected by a new real estate addition, such as a low-income apartments.
They probably wouldn't even allow it.
It would be the opposite for our neighborhood and may cause our property value to decline as time progresses. And another thing, the pictures that they show. Yes, sir.
Your time is up. Can you wrap up your comments in about a minute?
Okay, well, I just feel that I wouldn't agree with the type of property they putting a $10 million property in our neighborhood where we don't even have a proper grocery store that provides fresh fruits and vegetables within a 5-mile radius.
And they're gonna bring more.
And they're trying to bring more people in this area. How's that going to benefit anything? I don't see it benefiting our community.
No,
Plus, they have no roots in our community to begin with to know, what we need.
And they could do what they're doing here on 13th and Oliver.
As they mentioned, yeah, they can do it in a property that's already zoned for that. Why do they have to rezone our area to accomplish that, Especially when they don't have any experience.
Okay. Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions for the speaker from the commission? Hearing none. Once again, thank you for your testimony. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
Yes. My name is Deborah Lynch, and I live at 1662 Kenmar. That was my husband that was speaking just now.
Okay.
And I'm in agreement with him.
Okay.
Them bringing something into our neighborhood that they could have very well placed someplace else without coming in here and disrupting our single neighborhood family. It's going to affect our tax base. You can't say that it won't. It's going to change up our neighborhood as far as the amount of people that are over here is going to get crowded, which is going to lead to a lot of things that we have not had to deal with in the 25 plus years that we have lived here. It's going to disrupt the traffic when they get ready to put in the pipelines and the water lines. It's going to disrupt the lifestyle, the livelihood of the people that live up and down these streets peacefully and have enjoyed living over here. What they're trying to achieve at this school, at this property across the street, could have been achieved someplace else. I believe that there is an ulterior motive for them building in that particular place because of the things that are happening over at WSU. Our community is not going to benefit from any way with them doing and following through with a strip mall inside of a school building and whatever type of apartments that they build that will be mismanaged, bringing more people into a neighborhood that is not equipped to handle it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lynch. Do we have any questions for Ms. Lynch from the commission? Hearing none, thank you again for you and your husband's testimony. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case?
Yes, I would like to address, please.
If you could state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Lavonta Williams, 3928 Vesta Drive. And I too am in opposition of this project. I feel as if this particular area is a targeted area. The people that own this school and the property now surrounding it own approximately 120 other homes or multi-living facilities, over 120. And most of those, I will say, are in the 67219, 14, and 08 zip codes. Most of those are people of color. So if the property, to me, it seems that if property is not up to standard, if property is left vacant, if property cannot be paid for by the property taxes, I feel that these are the types of houses that this organization goes for. And many of them are in this particular part of town, 19, 14, and 08. So I have a problem with that. There was only one meeting that I attended, and it was on a Sunday. And I did mention to them, if you're talking about culture, you would understand that this culture saves Sunday as a very memorial day. It's a church day. It's a religious day. But they called a meeting, and some of us went. None were in favor of this particular project. And that is because we don't live well when there are 80 people crammed into one particular area. I mentioned to them that no, we don't live well in high-rise areas as well. And during my city council time, I did not let anything go higher than 2 to 3 stories. So yes, they did listen to that, but to put 80 people crammed into that particular part of the area is not a good idea. I think the use of the senior citizens is just a word. I do not believe it is their intent to ask and to put seniors in that facility. And if you put seniors in there, what is the age of a senior? And how many people can that senior put into that apartment or that living space? So that is another concern for me. You know, the people in the area may not have a lot, but by goodness, they are proud of what they have. And that's why they're saying this should not be a part of the community that has to go through this type of activity. I will tell you that the nuisance ordinance on houses came from 2 of this
organization's houses. That is when the chief of police said, you have had 2 incidents in these houses. If I come back the 3rd time, you will be charged. These were the kind of houses that she has. And that was why the ordinance was put in place for those who are having shootings, killings, all of those things in your houses. You'll be charged the next time for all of the police that have to come there.
Ms.
So
Williams?
for me, I feel
Ms.
as if
Williams?
I'm wrapping up. I'm wrapping up. I'm very passionate about this. They met with the community one time. We asked them to please go and visit 9th and Madison, 14th and Kansas. Look and see how well managed those apartments are, but those apartments are only 1 floor. So in opposition, I say this is not the place. I am looking at your history. I ask you to prove to me that you can handle this, and I don't think they can handle this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, are there any questions for Ms. Williams from the commission?
I'll take them.
Hearing none. Thank you again, Levanta, for your testimony.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for your time.
You bet. Is there anyone else virtually that would like to address the commission on this case? Hearing none, if we could have the agent or applicant come back, and you have 2 minutes to respond to any of the comments that might have been, that were made.
I'm responding to the complaint about all the rental property, about drug or gang or illegal gambling. None of that is applied to the address that KB Rental owns. KB Rental is owned by her. And none of that complaining will happen in any of that address here. So it's not what I was responsible for. About all the complaint, Ms. Khan was contact the city inspector, and there are no open or active complaining against KP Rental. Another thing, yeah, and we have the email that from the office of inspector.
Okay.
And I want to be clear that the KB Rental and Wing Senior Village is 2 separate entities. KB Rental is managed by her, and whatever that fall on her is on her. The Wing Senior Village is managed by me, and this is brand new. This is a separate entity. And within my responsibility, I do the best to make my investor happy and the neighborhood happy. That's all I can do.
Okay, thank you.
And I will do everything legally and morally.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions for the applicants? Hearing none, we'll bring it back to the commission for action, and you'll soon find out.
Thank you.
Thank you. What's the wish of the commission? I would move to approve the application as presented.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the application for the PUD. Are there any questions or comments?
Does the Kenmar Neighborhood Association have a current neighborhood plan?
They are part of the Northeast Central neighborhood plan.
This is.
And this falls within.
Right. Their neighborhood falls within the Northeast Central area neighborhood plan. So like, it's a much broader area than just one neighborhood, but Kenmar falls underneath that. And that's where that's the plan I quoted regarding the desire for senior housing, the desire for neighborhood serving, retail, neighborhood serving institutions, things like that.
could this closer neighborhood create its own plan? It's,
There is a process. It would come through they are eligible to request a neighborhood plan. It just has not been adopted.
and it
They
would
have
have
not
to be
gone
in
through the
place in
process.
order for that to be used to
Yes.
channel their concerns.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other, yes, Mr. Warren?
Well, I know it's a concern, and people get frustrated with change. Change is always difficult, but this is a direction that we've been seeing all over the city in terms of multifamily and mixed-use neighborhoods. And I'm having a hard time seeing why this is different than anything that we've done in other parts of the city.
Are there environmental review standards that this project would have to meet at the next phase of the process?
There are definitely review standards at the building, like before they get building permits or through the building permits and construction process. Yes, especially when it comes to remediating an older building. All that stuff is beyond the zoning code or our purview. We just deal with land use. When you get down to the nitty-gritty of how is the building constructed, how are they remodeling a building, any type of remediation is done on the nitty-gritty level through building permits.
Our job is just about land use.
Land use.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Is it an appropriate use for the site? Yes.
Any other comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote on the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. I don't see anything else on our agenda. I do need to make a comment before we close out the meeting that we had one of our commissioners inform me that she was going to be turning into a pumpkin at 4:30, which I didn't realize that retirement included turning into a pumpkin. But congratulations on your impending retirement party this evening. And as you can see, retirement is great.
I can do more homework on MAPC project.
There you go. So you're not leaving the commission, you're just retiring from your position before you work. So if there's nothing else that we need to have addressed, then we are adjourned.